call my treatment approach multimodal therapy. Now, the emphasis on multimodal is based upon the fact that today, to specialize would really be completely premature, because the time to specialize is when you have a fund of knowledge, hard facts and data from which you can draw. I submit that we do not have this data bank in psychology, and that it is imperative for us to really be able to draw upon a wide range of disciplines in the treatment processes that we use. Now, in multimodal therapy, instead of just having a mishmash of techniques, instead of just grabbing at things like a wild eclectic, what we have discovered is that by covering 7 basic modalities, we are able to proceed in therapy very thoroughly and comprehensively. Our follow-ups have been very gratifying in the sense that people not only respond to the treatment, but remain well able to function in life. The 7 modalities we try to cover are behavior, affect, which is the psychologist's term for emotion, sensation, imagery, cognition, interpersonal relationships, and biochemical or neurophysiological processes. And the feeling is that all problems probably have at least 5 or 6 inroads into these modalities that have to be clearly assessed and treated. And the more severely disturbed the person, the more the range of modalities that needs to be dealt with in treatment. The model is based upon 2 basic assumptions. The one is that people who have emotional problems have learned faulty ways of dealing with life, and the other assumption is they have failed to learn adaptive ways of coping with life's problems, so that there is a 2-fold attack in teaching the person to overcome their problems that they have learned, and how to also acquire those new responses they have never learned that they need. And the approach, therefore, is largely one that can be regarded as educational rather than medical in nature. I see myself as an educator, as a trainer, not as somebody who's treating sick people. I think that's the basis of the approach, and I hope to be able to bring out some of these facets in the actual treatment session with the client. Hi, my name is Arnold Lazarus, and you must be Kathy.
Kathy, right.
Hi, how
right,
do you do?
Hi.
I understand that you're obviously in this situation because there are some problems that have brought you here.
Yes.
Let's assume that I said to you, you could just use one word to describe whatever is bothering you. What would that word be? Take your time to think of it, but you just allowed one word. What would that be?
Thought of it already. Closed.
Closed.
Yeah.
Okay. So the word is closed. Now, if you're allowed one sentence, can you give me one sentence with closed in it that'll really reflect the feelings?
I have chosen to lead a closed-off life.
Okay.
Sorry,
go on.
To avoid the possibility of any future pain.
Okay. So what I've gotten from that then is this, that you seem to be withdrawing from things, people, activities, because somewhere in there is some pain that you fear.
Well, not exactly. I withdrew perhaps maybe 5 years ago when I separated from my husband. But in that time, I have come back, and I'm very involved, I'm very active, and I have a very busy life. But there is a part of me that's closed off that I'm aware of. And one of the things that had been bothering me is that my husband and I were separated for 4.5 years until last December when he was killed in an accident. And I didn't realize how much I relied on him as my shield against going out and forming new relationships until after he died. And I didn't realize how much I needed other people until at the funeral, when I needed that physical contact of the hugging and the being with other people. And
what were you like until that time? If someone had met you, say, 4.5 years ago, what would they have seen that's different now and then?
I'm heavier, for one thing. I weigh more. At that time in my life, at the good time in my life, before the marriage went bad, before things went bad, I was, well, I was going to say I was more vivacious, more active, more outgoing, but I'm not so sure. I think maybe a lot of things that were going on in the past were more game playing, always playing the happy-go-lucky one.
Okay.
And I kind of hide behind laughter a lot. But when my husband and I had problems, I withdrew. And the last few years, especially, have been very lonely years for me. But I realize that I have kept myself away, and that's why it's lonely.
Okay, just to piece this together then, my understanding would go something like this. If we had met you in the good times, when you and your husband were getting along well, we would have seen a vivacious person, but nevertheless, you would have been someone who was somewhat superficial.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, right.
Okay, then you had these differences. Now, what were the disputes that led you and your husband to separate?
Well, we had a lot of events that happened in the marriage which we had no control over. Shortly after we were married, we had to move from one part of the country to another, where we knew no one, and it was rather unfriendly when we got here. We moved to California, and it didn't settle well. Then I had another child. We had one child. I had another child right away, and then my stepson came to live with us, which are major adjustments for the family. The moving, then he was involved in a labor dispute, and he lost his job over it. This is all within a period of about 3 years.
So a lot of external things were going wrong.
Yeah, and so then we had to move again because we had no money because he lost his job, and then he started drinking heavily. And we had a lot of things to cope with that anyone would have stress with and would be a stress on the marriage. But after a couple of years after he lost his job, I suggested that we separate because he was drinking heavily and he was totally ignoring me. And there were some things that he said to me which indicated very strongly that he didn't love me. I didn't feel loved. And I think maybe he loved me as much as he could, but he was drinking heavily, so that means he was under the influence of alcohol. He didn't really see me as a person. So.
Let me zero into something there which strikes me as important. I want to get the continuity, and I want to be able to get right back to the closed-off notions, the pain aspects. But something that you said rang a bell with me. When problems arise, let's just say that somebody starts treating you badly, and you say to me, you know, he treated me badly for 3 months or 4 months. I would be wondering, gee, I wonder why you let that go on for more than a day. Do you see what I'm saying? If somebody is nasty to you, somebody's withdrawing from you, somebody's not giving you what you want, I'm wondering how well equipped you are to say to the other person, hey, I'm not getting what I want. Let's see how we can collaborate.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm asking?
I see exactly what you mean. And I was going to bring that up, as a matter of fact, how in the marriage, and not just in the marriage, but this is all my life, rather than saying I deserve better, I accept it, and that this is all that I deserve, and I wait until I can't take any more of this horrible treatment, and then I withdraw.
Okay, so that seems
and
very
even,
important.
as a matter of fact, even when I got married, I wasn't sure if I should go ahead and get married. I went to see a psychologist, as a matter of fact, to see if it was all right that I would really have these things, a marriage and a home and a husband and all that.
I'm going to just shift to a different dimension so that you can try and get an idea of the way I work clinically and see what you can make of it.
Yes.
To me, it seems to me that there are 7 things that we have to always think about in anything we want to change. And the one is behavior. It's like saying, what behaviors would you like to increase and decrease? Now, from what we've been speaking about so far, I want you to help me here put together a profile, as it were. Well, one behavior I'd like to see you increase is stating what you feel, not being so acquiescent, not putting yourself last. These are some behaviors. Any other behaviors that come to mind that you can add to that? I'm saying these would be, for me, the behavioral changes I'd like to see.
Okay, in addition to not doing those things which are bad for me, like putting myself last, I would like to do some positive things and do the things that are good for me.
Now let's hear, what would they be?
I'd like to sing some more.
Sing more?
Yeah, I like singing. I'd like to dress better.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to I was going to say I'd like to live someplace else, but then I always want to move someplace, but I think I really do. But that's one.
Okay, well that's great.
I'd like to go back to school.
To do what?
Go back to school.
To do what at school?
Oh, major in maybe music.
Okay. So what we then have are the things you'd like to stop doing and a lot of things that you'd like to start.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, therapy is a process where two people kind of pool their resources and they combine, where one would say, okay, what can we do and when? Of course, the timing is important, to be sure that you would quit those things that are getting in the way and start some of the other things that you mentioned. That's behavior. We're talking about behavior.
Yes, right,
see?
right.
And one of the things that one would come to in future sessions would be, okay, Kathy, let's see now, how can we implement these changes? And when? When would you start doing these things?
Yeah.
And the best time is always now.
Now, right,
okay.
right. First of all, before I could start doing the positive things, I suppose I'd have to stop doing the negative things.
Well, you can do them together. You know, why not start the positives and the negative? Okay, the second area is affect, which is a psychologist's term for emotions. And there is again, what are the negative feelings? Which are the negative feelings you want to get rid of? And the negative feeling, one of them that I get is what you called pain, which I think from time to time is a lot of sadness, a certain emptiness. How would one get rid of the emptiness is a question.
Mm-hmm.
What other things would you like to increase, decrease? What comes to mind there under affect or feelings or emotions?
Well, in putting myself last, I'm not really in touch with myself and who I am and what I need. And if things upset me, to express that anger.
To express the anger, okay, okay.
Instead of keeping it inside.
Right. Now, notice one thing.
Just like my little boy. He said one time when he went to the doctor, he said, "You hurt me." And then he went home. He came home crying. Maybe I have that same kind of feeling. You hurt me, but I hang on to it.
Instead of saying, hey, you hurt me, right there and then you...
Right, instead of dealing with it right then and there, I take it home and, well, hurt again.
Notice one thing, that each one of these areas that I'm talking about interfaces with the other. I mean, we are talking here about getting positive feelings. If you started doing the things that you're avoiding and knocked off some of the other negatives that we spoke about, there's a difference immediately in feeling. And you do get in touch with your feelings, in my opinion, by increasing the activities. Do you see what I'm saying? A bad way of getting in touch with feelings is to sit and think and say, I'm now getting in touch with my feelings.
Oh, yeah.
A good way is to go and do. Take the risk of doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Anger. So we have anger, and it's a matter here of how can we deal with the anger. And I would think that a good way of dealing with the anger is for you to get into the habit immediately, as soon as something annoys you, simply to point out, hey, I don't like that. Gee, that displeases me. Gee, I wish you wouldn't do that. Whatever, so there is an immediate expression. Okay.
I get into the, and I did this with my husband a lot. Well, they've got their reasons. You know, he's only doing it because of this, and kind of analyzing their behavior.
That's true. They've got their reasons, but you are also entitled to say, hey, I don't dig that. To take a simple example, let's say I have some kind of a spasm of my kneecap and I'm kicking you all the time. Well, I've got my reasons, you see, but you, I hope, would move out of the way or say to me, hey, you know, if you know you've got this disease of the kneecap, how come you position yourself so as to kick my shins, you see?
Really.
Okay. Let's go into the next one, which is sensations. Now, by sensations, I mean, you know, your 5 basic senses and all other things like, you know, proprioceptive feedback, we call it, kinesthetic movement, means just the whole way of being, your bodily movement. What can you tell me there that you'd like to decrease or increase? Do you have any negative sensations that you suffer from? Tensions, headaches, anything negative?
Yeah, let me see now. Well, I'd like to handle stress in a different way. I eat when I'm under too much stress, and I don't like that. Okay. Let's see. I feel tension. I don't get headaches too often. And I'll feel the tension like in my shoulders. But since my husband was killed, I feel it in my heart. I've had a lot of stress angina, a lot of chest pain. And that's decreasing now. That I don't have that as much as I used to. So I'd like to change that.
Okay, so that's certainly, we want to get rid of some stress sensations.
Yeah, I had the feeling ever since he was killed, well, no, ever since about a year ago, this feeling of holding on to stress. I'm hanging on to the stress. And I know that because I learned how to do self-hypnosis, and I learned how to do hypnosis for medical purposes. And when I would try to do that, it's hard for me to let myself relax. It's hard to let go of the stress.
So you're hanging on to it for some reason.
Yeah, I'm hanging on to something. I'm just, for some reason, I'm hanging on to all that.
What I'm doing is I'm just getting a kind of a radar sweep at the moment of saying, let's see, where are the problem things that come out in these modalities? What would we like to change? So we've got an idea now of what we'd like to change in behavior, in affect, in sensation. Let's talk about imagery now. By imagery, I mean any mental pictures, you know, that get in the way, any memories. What comes to mind there when I say imagery?
The imagery comes to mind as the way that I perceive myself, ways that I can, things that I'm able to do in life. You know, whether you can see yourself doing or being any way you want to, you usually complete that picture. If you can see yourself being in a certain way, then you can usually be that way.
I have a theory that before we can do anything, it's necessary first to picture ourselves in our mind's eye doing it.
Right, definitely.
And you would rehearse that image.
Definitely.
But I was wondering, you know, there's a lot of a focus here upon your husband's death. What kind of imagery is getting in the way there is what I'm wondering about. When I say to you, look, since your husband died, you are in fact that much more into pain, that seemed to have triggered a lot of things. And I'm suggesting that there must be some mental pictures. Any that come to mind that you can share with me?
Yes, the only thing is that now I have really, at this point, 8 months later, I have really no reason to not be more happy.
Objectively,
Objectively. Right. That I'm more financially secure than I've ever been in my life. And because of that, I am more able to do the things that whatever I'd like to do. And I feel like should I really?
And if you picture yourself really doing it, I mean, if you just now, whatever it is, you are doing it. You've taken that chance and you've decided, yes, tying back to the behavior, I'm going to do that. Just picture that. What is it? What do you see? Like as a flash?
Oh, I'd travel. which I have already done a little bit. And have all kinds of parties, have people over all the time. I like having people over. I like having parties. Do artistic things.
Is that an escape?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
Mm-mm.
Can you picture your husband standing in front of you?
No, what stood in front of me and what's
I don't mean that. I mean, like, let's say, like, I'm saying to you, like, can you picture, let's say, can you picture your mother standing in front of you? You can close your eyes and picture her. Can you picture your husband standing in front of you? If you just close your eyes and imagine that.
No.
No?
Oh, okay, well, you want me to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to do it? Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just, would you do that and then just tell me what do you see and what do you feel?
I see a dying man who died a long time before he was killed in an accident. And I feel a lot of compassion for him.
You know what is interesting to me is that there's so much emotion tied up with that when you talk about him or picture that, the whole tone of your speech and everything is so very different, that somehow you haven't in many ways disconnected, almost having given him permission to be dead. You know what I'm saying? I almost feel that there's still too much of a connection with the past, and that's one of the things that I'd like to write down on the list, that, gee, I'd like to see a disconnecting with
the past?
Yeah. Like there's a lot of pain tied into that.
Yeah, I need to let it go. How do you let it go?
Letting go is interesting, isn't it? It's like there's not a letting go. It's sort of like tied into what you were talking about with the angina pain.
That's hanging on.
Yeah. And I'm wondering what you're hanging on to there, what it represents. Not that we could answer that right now, you know, in a first meeting, but it was just a thought. I'm saying to myself, I wonder how come she's hanging on to something that's really not facilitating the present and the future. And I'd like to see how in therapy one could persuade her to let go of that, to be able to go into the future, as opposed to looking at the past.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay. Let's just talk a bit about cognitions. That's thoughts, values, attitudes, beliefs, and so on. And that's where a lot of the I am last, I am not as good as, or something like that comes through. And what are those sentences that you are saying to yourself is what I'd like to try and look at. Somehow the sentences you seem to be saying are, I need permission. You see, and as a therapy exercise, I'd like to see you do the opposite. I'd like to see you saying to yourself, I don't need permission. Would you try that just to see what happens if you do that now, just as an exercise? It's like,
okay, I don't need permission.
I'm saying to you, Kathy, you need permission. You better get permission. And you take the opposite role, you see. But try and feel it for real.
Okay, I was just going to say, well, I'll go and get it. It's all right. Okay, do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need permission.
Yes, you do. You know you need permission. You must
No,
get permission.
I don't. I don't need any permission.
I think it would be better if you do get permission.
I'm not going to.
How does it feel when you're doing this exercise?
I like it.
Because I think that somehow in that is an important self-statement.
I like it, yeah.
What else? Let's just get the self down.
But either I like it or I'm playing a game with you. Either I'm making a joke out of it.
Well, one of the troubles, if you're dealing with somebody who's acquiescent, is you're going to be acquiescent with me.
Yeah.
I noticed in the beginning you weren't that acquiescent. I said something and you said to me, no, that's not quite accurate, and then you corrected me. I was pleased about that. You know, of course, that gives you a feeling, oh, look, I can trust her. She will. Okay.
Yeah.
This thing about being last, you see, let's take that one now, where you do the opposite. I'm saying you are last. You better be last in line. That's where you belong. You are last. What are you going to say?
Oh, yeah?
How about
I'm
something
first.
stronger? Okay.
I'm first. I'm here first.
Oh, come on, you know that's not true. I mean, you really belong last in line.
No, I don't. I belong first.
Then how come you're always last?
I got stuck there, but I'm really first.
How does that feel?
I like that.
Okay.
Makes me feel, I can feel some anger with that.
Okay.
Like, don't put me last.
How about in the middle?
It's not good enough.
Good, okay.
But as long as we're talking, we might as well shoot for the best.
Now, some of these self-talk things are very important, because I think that very often when you do put yourself last, it's as though you are saying to yourself, I'm last. Poor me, I might as well go to the back of the line. And if you go through the exercise of saying no, like you're talking to an intruder, when you see yourself doing that, you catch yourself saying that, get out of here, I am not last, just as you were doing. They are useful exercises. Tied into other people now, I want to just get into a little bit of the role playing on assertiveness. Can you think of a real situation that's important where you need to stand up for your rights, where you need to say things and you don't? Something that's real.
Okay. Yes, in a work situation that I was in,
Okay.
I allowed the people who ran the unit to completely schedule me in the most inhumane working conditions. I allowed that to go on. It was kind of like I thought back on it, it was an exercise in masochism for me. It was horrible, and I let them do that without saying anything, and I showed them that I could do it. I could work under those conditions.
Why? What was the
Which was
point
the
of it?
stupidest thing. You know, who cares? Who cares? If I would have been more assertive and more sure of myself, I would have told them what to do with the scheduling was all off, was all wrong. But I was looking at it from their
Who
standpoint.
gives you the assignment? Is it a supervisor? I mean, who's
No,
the
it was
one
the supervisor of the unit, and the staffing was low. And we were rotated not only different shifts, but different floors. So there were 3 floors that I had to know all the patients on, and also work the day, afternoon, or midnight shift, which was the most untherapeutic thing for the patients.
Let's
And
just
it was the
play
most
that.
awful thing for the nurses.
Can I be the supervisor?
All right.
And you've come in and I'm saying to you, okay, Kathy Allen, I've got your shifts and the schedule worked out here. Let me see. For the next 3 weeks, you are going to be on the midnight shift Monday through Friday. You will then be working on weekends, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I'm afraid we have no time off for you in the next 3 weeks. Of course, we are understaffed, and I'm sure you understand the position, and that's it. So it is the midnight shift, basically, and there are the 3 floors, and you are responsible for patients on all 3 floors. Is that understood?
Yes, I understand that, but I'm not going to be able to work those hours or those shifts.
Well, I mean, if you don't, you don't expect me to, do you?
No. But I think we ought to think about the scheduling and come up with a different kind of schedule, because that won't work.
Well, look, I've already spoken to Matilda, and she, unfortunately, this is her vacation period, and this is about the best that we could do.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to go to the administrator and get some other help up there.
Now, what's interesting to me is this. I mean, you are beautiful in the therapeutic situation. I mean, you are soft and yet firm. There's nothing about you that's aggressive or nasty. And I'm playing somebody that's coming on pretty strong, and you are handling it magnificently. But it seems that in the real world you don't play it that way. Yet you can. There it is. I mean, it comes out in here magnificently.
I think that's true. But I don't always play it the submissive one. But I do a lot. And I feel safe with you, and I feel like, okay, we can go ahead and we can do this. But the consequences, I don't know, it's different. I have trouble.
Like it's there, it's in your repertoire. You see, with a lot of people
it's in
that
my
I see,
act, just not playing the same
see,
act.
with most people that I see who do what you do, It's not in the act.
Oh, I
You
see.
see, and,
Yeah.
and in therapy what often happens is I might come on that way and they will look nonplussed and say, well, okay, gee, if I must, I will, and then we reverse roles and I
But
say,
see, I
"Sure you."
did. I didn't put limits on what I could do. I knew at the time that I was going under that it was too much for me. Physically and emotionally, it was too much for me. But yet I continued to do it.
Okay, the interesting thing is you are saying in here, I know it's an act. I'm safe with you, there are no consequences.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and even though you have it in your repertoire, out there you are saying, it's dangerous, it's risky, I better not take the chance. And I guess I'm saying I see that as a very important mistake, which is I'm not going to take risks.
Yeah, because I can see that I can talk about it all day long, and I can say I can do it, but unless I get out and do it, probably be a lot easier than what I think it's going to be.
My main feeling is this. I sense in you a person who has got a tremendous number of real positives. One of the pities is that you don't know me well in the sense that you might think, well, this is a therapy line. You know, like, let's boost the patient's ego a bit and tell us some nice things.
No, I don't feel that from you. I feel like you're being honest with me.
The real honest-to-goodness truth is that so many people who work with me are hungry for a stroke where I'm going to say, hey, you're okay.
Yeah,
I don't, you see. I think that it's important to speak the truth. And if somebody is behaving like a real idiot, you don't say, hey, this is brilliant. You say, you know, you're behaving like an idiot. You don't put them down as a human being, but you point out the negatives. So I want you to understand that when I am underscoring the positives, that this is meant sincerely. In saying, gee, there's a lot going. You've a lot going for you. There are a lot of very, very basic positives. And the big risk that you need to take is allowing yourself to feel. Now, if somebody treats you badly, let's say that you've really made an investment, and this person treats you badly, for you to feel, oh my God, I am destroyed, I am crushed. That strikes me as a very, very big mistake. I'll never do that again. You know, it's too painful, as opposed to...
I don't see how that's a mistake, though. You have to go with the feeling, whatever it is. And if you are destroyed or crushed, it seems to me that... See, what I've always done in my life is to deny my feelings. So if you can go with the feeling, then it'll be over with, and maybe you can get past it.
Okay, when we talk about destroyed and crushed, I mean, you know, there are some people that... to take a silly example, I could say, you know, if Kathy Allen doesn't tell me she likes my shirt, it means she doesn't like me, and that would be awful, and I will be crushed and destroyed. I leave here today, you said nothing about my shirt, I know you hate me, I'm crushed and destroyed. You see what I'm saying? Now, I'm being a bit facetious, but very often in real life, this is what we do. I love somebody desperately. I give to her my all, my feelings, my sensitivity, my love, and she rejects me. Well, that is tremendously painful.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be crushing and destroying unless I let it be. I want to give you the theme that we as human beings can control our emotions, that we don't have to be crushed and destroyed unless we let it happen. So if you meet me and I say to you, I'm crushed and destroyed because my beloved rejected me for another. Therefore, I'm a worthless human being. I'm a failure as a man. I'm no good. I'm awful, and life isn't worth living. I hope that you, as a compassionate person, would see that that's nonsense, that I'm telling myself a lot of nonsense.
Yes, but as a compassionate person, I would sit with you, and I would repeat some of those things. I would say, you're crushed, or you're destroyed, and get you to talk about your feelings and share that with you.
Splendid.
And then you could drop it.
But isn't the eventual thing for you to show me that I'm not crushed and destroyed?
Oh, yes, but by my caring for you, you'll see that you're a worthwhile person.
That's one good way of doing it, okay?
Yeah.
But there are other ways of doing it. I mean, let's assume the caring takes too long, very often, that kind of caring. Yeah, it does take
a long time.
If you could point out to me, let's just say, through logic, Isn't that an avenue that might be useful? I'm suggesting here that we might be able to get you often to use logic.
Oh, I see.
That when you are hurting so dreadfully, you're going to know that this is not because of what has happened to you as much as what you are telling yourself about what has happened. If one could get that theme across, then you're not going to be so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
The anger part is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, we keep coming back again and again and again to the fact that there is a need for you to express anger and to do it assertively, not aggressively. How do you express your anger at the moment?
How do I? Well, I don't have many. I think I express myself somewhat on my anger. All I can think about is my children, you know. I get
yes, how are you with your children?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad they're not here today. Well, I tell them that I'm really angry.
Mm-hmm. How does it sound? Do you
angry.
Yeah.
Sounds really angry. I tell them they better go outside or they better go in the room because I'm just too angry to even talk to them. I send them away for their own safety.
And with anybody else, how do you express your anger? I can see very often with one's children one can do that.
Yeah.
But how about other people? How do you express your anger?
Well, I guess maybe I don't really express it at the moment. I may talk about it later on, about how I was angry, but I save it. I don't really, you know, I don't really get into my annoyance or my angry or whatever. I'll just kind of put it on the shelf.
Let us try and make one very definite agreement that we'd come out of this with, because I think that it's terribly important that you at the very least are able to say, I like, I don't like, so that if something is happening that you don't like, you're able to say to the person, hey, I don't like that. That makes me angry. Do you think you could agree to do that?
Well, I think
I mean, could we really make a pact that the one thing that you would do, if nothing else from this particular session, if nothing else, that you are the kind of person that will let other people into your negative feelings after this hour, as it were, that you will be in the habit of saying, gee, I like that, I don't like that. Do you think we could agree to that?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think that would make an enormous difference.
Yeah, I think it would too.
Let's shake on that as a deal. As a
you got a
pact.
deal.
Okay. Okay. Kathy is an attractive, intelligent young woman who is very acquiescent, who agrees very readily with everything that seems to go on, because part of her problem is very much not really saying where she's at and what she feels. And for this reason, it was difficult to really pin her down and to be able to elicit specific problems and goals in the therapy. A lot of the time I had felt that she was simply agreeing for the sake of agreeing. Now, here is a young woman who waits for permission, who downs herself, who's basically unassertive in many areas, who doesn't take risks, who doesn't do a lot of things she wants to do because she's always waiting for permission from some unknown source, who is playing a rather passive role. I wonder whether this is tied into her, quote, femininity, whether she isn't a victim of what so many women in our society are a victim of, namely the sort of passive role as being part of her femininity. She has on top of that a penchant for needless guilt. The tears would well up in her eyes so often. Now, I found myself backing away from that. For purposes of illustration, some therapists might be inclined to really capitalize on that to produce some dramatic effect. I found that it was better to back away so that she wouldn't feel a loss of dignity under the camera, since this is a somewhat artificial situation. I might not have backed away as often in a private clinical situation. Running through the basic id, which is the behavior, affect, and so on that needs to be changed, clearly in the behavioral modality, there are a lot of specific assignments that one would want to give her. They came out fairly clearly in the session. In the affective mode, appropriate anger expression seems to be a very important thing I would work on in subsequent sessions. In sensation, I would certainly work on tension release, and in imagery, I would get much more into her self-image in further sessions and try to change the negatives in that self-image. In terms of her cognitions, the shoulds, the fact that she has to obey, would be something I would also want to try and eliminate, where she would be much more spontaneous, much more in charge of her own life. In interpersonal, I would like to see her take more control and taking more emotional risks. Those are the main zones that I would want to focus on from what was elicited today. Now, the overall feeling that I have about her is that this young woman really and truly is very much in command of more situations than she realizes. The very fact that she was able to role play as successfully demonstrates that this is in her repertoire. It's a matter of, in therapy, showing her that she doesn't have to play the one-down role, which has paid off for her in many, many ways in the past. A question I might also have is, would she do better with a male or a female therapist? I might, if I were working with her in my private practice, think about referring her to one of my female associates who would really be able to teach her, woman to woman, the virtues of being an assertive rather than an acquiescent woman. So I would think of this young lady as the case of the acquiescent woman, if I were to capsulize it in that form.
Okay, I've been asked to give a summary of my feelings for the day, and it's kind of difficult to separate exactly how I'm feeling. It's been a very long day for me. Meeting Dr. Rutgers and Dr. Sjostrom and Dr. Lazarus, the styles of each therapist was so different. With Dr. Rutgers, he seemed much more fatherly in a way. I felt very comfortable with him. I felt like I could just talk with him, and it was safe to go ahead and just kind of ramble on and say whatever came to my mind. He was very fatherly. With Dr. Sjostrom, I felt that he pushed me more. It's like I had to work a lot more. I had to, not only could I just sit there and talk to him about how I was feeling, I had to get up and feel it, and I had to try to experience my feeling as I was talking about them. And with Dr. Lazarus, his style was so different from the other two. Much more, well, all right, you have these feelings, now let's do something about all of this. And actually, as I sit here thinking about it, I'm kind of glad that I had the experience of meeting each one of these doctors in the sequence that I did. I feel it was kind of the sequence of first opening up and first talking and kind of getting in touch with what I'm feeling, and then going to work on those feelings with Dr. Sjostrom, and then with Dr. Lazarus. Well, now that you know what your feelings are and you can talk about them, let's just go out there into the world and be a more effective person. And I think that was really nice that I had that experience in that sequence. It really followed a good pattern for me. It's difficult to say if I would choose one doctor over the other, or one method of therapy over the other. That makes me uncomfortable to have to make a choice like that, because where I've been at today, I've been able to draw from each person. If I'm feeling really guarded and uptight like I was when I first started, then Dr. Rutgers was the perfect person to put me at ease so that I could get into my feelings, so I could express myself more comfortably. And having done away with that, then I was more able to work with my feelings with Dr. Sjostrom. And being all, well, I was going to say being all tired out from having done all that work. I was ready to go out and do something then with Dr. Lazarus, to go out and be more effective in the world. So it's been a very good day for me.